Hello, today we'll be covering a deep dive into Simple Content Access, a component of Subscription Watch. So as a recap, if you haven't seen the first video in the series, Simple Content Access is a series of capabilities inside of Satellite 6.3 or newer that gives you the ability to deploy systems within an organization without having an entitlement attached. In giving you that capability, it allows you to get up and running without having to do a lot of complex entitlement tool setup, as well as make deployment of management of systems easier. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to deep dive into two major areas. First and foremost, we're going to cover how Simple Content Access behaves and how its behavior differs from how Satellite traditionally behaves. And then we're going to talk into some of the reporting and governance tools which are included in Satellite. And then in future videos, we'll talk about some of the newer SaaS-based offerings we have in Subscription Watch that are available at cloud.redhat.com. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a satellite server, and I wanted to really very crisply explain how does Simple Content Access work. So in this particular satellite, we have two subscriptions installed, two Red Hat subscriptions, a Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server Standard. Both of those subscriptions are fully consumed, and we are basically at a scenario where my satellite has no more RHEL subscriptions. And we want to demonstrate it in that perspective because it enables you to see very clearly how does Simple Content Access behave even when subscriptions of a particular type or class are exhausted. But before we go ahead and show that, we're going to demonstrate how activation keys need to change in the world of Simple Content Access. So first and foremost, activation keys are tokens that are provided at login time that traditionally will attach a subscription, configure a system to a certain environment, such as library or any other software development environment you have, and connect them to a content view. The content view is a grouping of repositories. So in this case, we're going to use this AK register activation key. It has a host limit of 2 of 3. That is, I've set it that a maximum number of 3 hosts can register with this key, and so far 2 of them have been used. So if we take a look at the activation keys, when Satellite's in Simple Content Access mode, on content pages such as activation keys and a content host page, you'll see this pop-up box, and it's really just a reminder that says you have access to the repos regardless of what subscriptions attach. So since we're not requiring you to attach subscriptions to systems, it is important for you to remember that you don't have to. So if we take a look at the Subscriptions tab, you'll see the Subscriptions tab is still blank. The auto-attach value really could be set to yes or no. It really doesn't matter because there are no subscriptions being attached anymore. However, certain parts of activation key setup still need to happen, such as repository sets, right? Repository sets govern what repos are actually enabled when the system is registered. And you still want to have control over that even though you're not attaching entitlements. So in this particular case, I have the RHEL 7 RPMs repo enabled so that it's enabled by default. And then activation keys still have the requirements to set up host collections, which I don't have any on this key, but you may have them in your environment because you use them to group systems generally. If we head back over to the details page, we can see once again that the activation key has a host limit of 3. And if we head back on the main page, we'll see that we've registered 2 of 3 systems. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and register a 3rd system so we can see how the behavior differs. So on this system, I named the GT Client 3 for simplicity's sake. I'm going to go ahead and register a system using the standard Subscription Manager register command, specify an organization and activation key. So as you can see, I get the standard message of, here's the UUID that the system's been registered with, and here's the registered and detected host name. You'll see under installed product status, the system has Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server installed, but we don't have any more valid subscriptions on the satellite server. Again, we exhausted the 2 of 2 that we have. So Subscription Manager will tell you that, but this message is more informational than an error. And what I mean by that is we can go ahead and let's do a yum repo list, which would generally fail at this point, right? It will generally tell you, hey, you don't have a subscription, you can't access these repositories. But you can see that that's not the case. I have the RHEL server repository enabled. I would have other repositories if they were enabled on my activation key. So let me go ahead and install a package. Let's say I want to install, C Shell, for instance. I'll go ahead and do a yum install of that package. We can see that it's, pulls it from the metadata that we need. And if I go ahead and hit yes, we can go ahead and install that package, right? Not an issue at all. That's exactly what we want, right? So when subscriptions of a particular class are exhausted, or even if, let's say, you didn't exhaust them or you just didn't have properly set up activation keys, as long as you can register the system with an activation key, then it's important to understand that you'll have content provided by said activation key. So with that being said, one of the next questions comes up is, well, if I have the ability to register systems without attaching entitlements, how do I keep track? How do I keep myself from wildly deploying large numbers of systems that I weren't expecting? So the host limit of the activation key, which for this key we set a host limit of 3, is a very key component of that. So generally speaking, activation keys usually set up systems either by workload, so like a RHEL system or an OpenShift system, or they set them up by environment, crash, development, production, QA, or a combination of the two. So if you know that information, you can go ahead and set up your activation keys to match how your environment is set up. So let's say if you had 50 OpenShift nodes you were going to be registering, you can set your OpenShift activation keys to have a maximum of 50. That way, when it's used the 51st time, it'll just error out. And I'll show you how that's going to work. So firstly, I'm going to refresh this page because we just registered that third system. And now we can see that this activation key, aka register, is fully exhausted as well, right? I have said it can register exactly 3 systems, and I am currently using all 3. So if I go ahead and attempt to register a 4th system, I should get an error message. So let's go confirm that we actually do. So I'm going to head over to my CLI again, and I'm going to head over to this new system, GT Client 4. And I'm going to do a subscription manager register command, Red Hat, activation key, AK-register. Same activation key process as I used before. Go ahead and hit enter. And then Satellite's going to respond back to me with an error message. It's going to tell me this activation key has been set up for a maximum of 3 hosts, and we have reached that maximum. So therefore, I can no longer register any more systems using this activation key. Now at this point, there's a couple of things you can do. One, if you no longer want to use that activation key to register systems because that's the maximum you want to allow, you do nothing. However, if you want to raise that limit because now you've purchased additional subscriptions or what have you, you can go back to the Satellite UI, select that activation key, and we're going to bump that host limit up. Let's say we'll bump it up to 4 and hit save. And now, if we return back to our client again and attempt that same registration command again, it should succeed as normal. Again, we no longer have any more RHEL subs, so we don't have any any valid subscriptions to attach. But again, that's okay. That's by design. You can use the content without having to attach a subscription. Now, if I do something like a Yum update, for instance, you see I get my Yum repo data just like any other system. Everything still works the same, right? The key point, again, is when the satellite's in simple content access mode, you do not have to attach entitlements, period. And this will give you the capability to still maintain some governance and controls by not allowing more systems to come in than you expected, right? It keeps you from, becoming rapidly or wildly over deployed by providing access controls at the point where systems are registered. So we'll go ahead and just install those packages just so that this we can show you that this actually does in fact work. And then off we go. So now another way that we can go ahead and keep you from being over deployed is by leveraging some of the built-in inventory that's in Satellite Server. So far, the activation keys, you like to think of them as a active form of governance, right? You are explicitly telling the person no at the time when they're attempting to register a system. You also can supplement that with what we like to call passive governance. And what that is that maybe we don't tell them no at the point of registration. However, we constantly audit ourselves internally to make sure that we don't see a spike in inventory that we were not expecting. So one of the simplest ways to do this, it's not the most complete, but it is simple and it does work, is to leverage some of the inventory capabilities that are in Satellite. So Satellite 6.5 and newer includes a number of reporting templates which will give you things about the environment such as the number of subscriptions you're using or the number of hosts you have registered in a very simple format. I like to use the registered host report. we go ahead and hit generate. You can select the host filter, so if you wanted to limit this to a particular organization or a particular subset of keys, maybe a host collection or a lifecycle environment, you can do that here. But this is a relatively small satellite, so we're going to just go ahead and leave this blank and hit submit so we can get a report of all the hosts. So go ahead and hit submit. This report comes back. It's a text-based report, so I'm just going to go ahead and open it. And you can see in this report, it's a basic CSV report, but it has just a simple list of inventory. Here's the systems, here's their IP, version of RHEL, errata information, which we really don't care about in this particular instance, subscriptions that are attached, and you can also see for for systems 3 and 4, there are no subscriptions attached because we're in simple content access mode. We didn't necessarily require them. Okay, so you could use this just as a quick down and dirty. Give me a list of all the systems that were registered. If you see any anomalies, you can go ahead and address those anomalies. Now, this is a good set of reporting for kind of spot checking, but for a more complete historical set of reporting, we like to advise you to use Subscription Watch because that'll show historical reporting. It'll also show it across multiple products and gives you a lot more filtering options. We'll cover setting up integrating satellite with Subscription Watch in any future videos. But for today, you can go ahead, even if you're not using Subscription Watch, you can still take advantage of Simple Content Access's capabilities without having any worries about, how am I going to keep people from, shooting themselves in the foot, or how do I just provide governance and controls in my environment. So lastly, if we head over to the satellite UI just once more, just wanted to confirm, as you can see, we have all 4 systems registered. The 2 that were consuming subscriptions are green, the 2 that don't have subscriptions are red, but these subscription statuses don't really matter anymore, and you'll see them actually disabled in future versions of Satellite when Simple Content Access is turned on. So with that being said, again, future videos will cover how to integrate Satellite's inventory with Subscription Watch so that you can see the Satellite's inventory in the cloud-based platform over time. With that being said, thank you very much. Have a good day.